As Robbie told us on Thursday, the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus had a lot to say for himself. He once wrote, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you have now was once among the things you only hoped for," which is how you can tell that Epicurus never had to watch Barry Robson's Wraith Rovers. Among the primary tenets of his philosophy is the quest for ataraxia, which is the ability to live free from mental distress. And unfortunately, that means that those of us who witnessed yesterday's loss to Queen's Park are doomed to never live a life of Epicurean tranquility. This is the Oh No 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 podcast, and I'm afraid it is another one of those episodes. For the second week in a row, the Rovers faced a side coming off the back of a pumping, and for the second week in a row, never looked remotely like dishing out one of their own. With an abundance of possession and territory, Barry Robson's side delivered more crosses than a Catholic wholesalers, but were ultimately undone by the resolute defending of Ewan Murray and the deadly finishing of Josh Fowler. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me for a right good bitch and a moan, I've got Greg Brown, first of all. How are you, Greg?
Yes, I'm fine, thanks. Looking forward to discussing the game. I think it's an exorcism of troubled thoughts. I think we're requiring.
Yeah, I think we'll not spike the excitement meter at any point in this one. We've got Robbie Weir as well. How are you, Robbie?
Yeah, thank you for taking that introduction and just kind of amplifying it and just expanding it into probably something that's a bit more extensive, shall I say, than I'll ever be able to manage. But yeah, that game was fucking rotten yesterday in terms of the end result. But we'll come on to that and we'll have a chat about that.
Yes, at length. We've got Allan Douglas Munn as well. How are you, Allan?
Hi, I'm still here. Yesterday was not a fun afternoon in the sun in Glasgow. It's fun enough. I feel like on it, taken completely out of context, the game on its own might not have been that bad, but just in among all the other shite we've had to deal with for the last couple of months, it's just more piled on top, really, isn't it? It's just horrific. But yeah, it's going to be good to get it off our chest today, I think.
Definitely. And rounding us off for this evening, we've got Blair Hawcroft as well. How are you, Blair?
I'm raging, mate. Absolutely raging. Yesterday was just an absolute cluster from beginning to end. Greg and Robbie were on the bus. With me, we got in 15 minutes late, so we missed the first goal.
Lucky you.
I know, just before we scored, and we thought, we're the good luck charm. So I suppose I shouldn't moan. I only had to see 75 minutes of it yesterday. But yeah, brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, you probably your retinas that'll thank you most for that. Just spent the first 20 minutes just staring directly into the sun. Yeah. So just to kind of provide a little bit of sort of context for this, Queen's Park, they got beat 5-0 last week. They had scored one goal in their last 5 games. They'd won one league game all season, and they hadn't won at home in the league since January. Now, and it's November. With that in mind, Greg, when you saw the Rovers starting lineup and Josh Mullen was back in for Paul McMullen, were you brimming with confidence as you sat on the bus somewhere that wasn't on the way to the City Stadium?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a bit of context, I come about 2:25 yesterday. We were in Edinburgh, so it was concerning in a whole host of ways. So it was slightly reassuring to you know what? Don't
That's not even sarcasm. That's actually true.
We were listen. We'll not get derailed by that, but we were close enough to Murrayfield as make no difference if we'd just gone there. But no, when the lineup came out, listen, that's probably about what I expected. Mullen coming in for McMullen is exactly what I kind of hoped for the week prior in terms of changes. Listen, I'm not buying into the whole, the injuries are stacking up. Yeah, there are injuries, but I'm not convinced that they're all to people that would be walking into the starting lineup anyway. So Starting lineup was fine, and we kind of joked on the bus that by the time we get there, Rovers will already be 1-0 down anyway, so like that'll be fine. And little did we know that was actually going to happen. So I don't think the formation was concerning. I don't think the lineup was overly concerning. And given Queen's Park's recent form, I actually thought this should be a chance to hit the reset button a wee bit here.
Yeah, it's I mean, to be fair, that first period that you missed, you really didn't miss much at all, to the point where I think I was literally texting you to say, you have missed absolutely nothing. It was 1-0. Like this. Actually, no, the goal has gone in. It really was the first thing of note in the game was the goal, so we'll jump straight to it. I mean, the Rovers quite literally walking it around at the back, which I suppose makes a change from just kind of shelling it long. But Darragh O'Connor sort of knocks it to Jordan Doherty. He plays a not brilliant short pass to Ross Matthews, who can't control it. Seb Drozd takes it off his toes, plays in Josh Fowler, who just has far too much time. And to the point where at the time I thought he's taken too long over this. But he hadn't. And he zips the ball into the bottom corner. Now, as sort of post-mortems go, I think there's a fair bit of blame to go around in this one. Blair, I'll start with you. Are you running out of fingers to point at Rovers players in this one?
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of summed it up already. The pass for Doherty's no good enough. The kind of first touch for Matthews and the slip. I mean, that happens. It's human nature, I suppose, but it's avoidable. You would hope. And then the two centre halves just keep backing off and backing off and backing off. And then I'm not a goalkeeper. It didn't look great for Josh Ray, I have to say. He's squared up. It's not as if it's come. You know, sometimes like a boy hits a shot and you go, "Oh, the keeper never had a chance to get himself set." But like you've just said, he took his sweet time about it. He lined the thing up. You knew he was going to shoot. And for a goalie the size of him to not be able to cover his post, I don't know. It didn't look great. So, kind of all of the above. Really, like I say, I've only seen it in the highlights, so as the other two have as well. So maybe Allan's the one that that can give us some tactical insight from it.
Yeah, we'll come to you for some tactical insight. Allan, what have you got to say about that?
It's funny because what the sun was in my eyes. You know, I'm sitting there trying to watch it. So if you'd asked me this before I'd watched the highlights, I was putting all of the blame at Ross Matthews, all of it. Because for where we were sat, it really didn't look good for him. With the highlights, I think a fair old chunk of the blame goes to Jordan Doherty. It was a really poor pass. And then, as you say, once they come up, it's that old thing. How many times have we seen people just given the freedom of the pitch to come at us and nobody's there? I'm going to give Josh Fowler some credit. It's a cracking strike. Like, really, it's right in the bottom corner. He hits it with a lot of power. I think, kind of expanding on what Blair says about Josh Ray, I kind of feel like I'm being harsh, but at the same time, he actually gets across and covers the post, but the ball's already in the net by the time he's actually there. Is it just that the ball's hit really hard, or did he dive too late? I don't know. Like Blair, I am not a goalkeeper, so I don't know. But it's the type of goal we just lose all the time, and we never score them. It's just so bloody frustrating. I think that word frustrating is going to be used a lot today. And yeah.
On the kind of Josh Ray of it all, it's an odd one because he doesn't, to the untrained eye, doesn't ostensibly do anything wrong. He's not obviously slow to get down. He's not obviously bad with his feet or anything. But at the same time, he's got an unobstructed view from 20 yards. You'd think you should be able to get down to your bottom corner for that. You see penalty.
Either.
Yeah,
that's the really key thing. His hands his elbows not fully. I'm like,
I think he'd want that back, but it's a a comedy of errors to get to that point. Even to the point where when Fowler's hitting it, Darrell Connor's more worried about him slipping the pass across.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of these, like, we've said it before, like, you got to put out the biggest fire first. Like, the guy who is the top scorer has got the ball at his feet and is shaping up to shoot. Why are you concerning yourself with, oh, he might nip this into the channel? He's just got to get across that. I mean, to use the obvious counterpart, Ewan Murray up the other end of the park isn't letting him get that shot away. For all his varying faults, he's not the perfect defender. He'd have been right in front of that shot. And I think Darrell Connor's just caught in two minds and goes to that eye.
I think a lot of credit's got to go to Fowler just in terms of the way that he sets his body. And just, it's almost like you see him delay that extra half second just to get his body set and to move it on. Barry Robson would be delighted though, because it wasn't a penalty box entry. So we'll give him that credit. Just to go back to something that Greg mentioned right at the start, because Neary's Toe Poker put up a list each week of the injuries our players missing for each team. We've currently got 3. It's so bizarre to look at it in that context. We've actually got Arbroath, the only team in the division to have fewer players out there, only missing the 2 at the moment in terms of injuries. But it's just with it, there was just a complete lack of control in that situation, just to lose the ball in that position and put ourselves on the back foot. Really frustrating early in a game.
Yeah. Greg, anything you want to add to that?
No, just exactly that. Like, you see it in the replay that O'Connor's clearly, he's expecting and hoping Hanlon's coming in, and it's just that kind of you can't. Like, you mentioned it yourself that Fowler's banging goals in this season just close him down. If he puts it in the channel and there's a goal, okay, it's still no great. But you're just offering it on a plate for Fowler to have a go, and he does, and it's a well-worked finish. Yeah.
I don't think there's mitigation for basically anybody in that. Like, Docherty's pass isn't great. Matthews should still do better with it. O'Connor should still do better with the closing down, and Ray should still do better with the shot. It's just, and then that at the same time, despite what I've just said there, not to take credit away from Josh Fowler, he does do very well with it. And sorry, I forget who it was. Someone just said it's the kind of goal that we don't tend to score.
No, we don't.
And maybe that's just down to nobody shoots from 20 yards in this Rovers side very often. Which is something
there are a lot of goals that we don't score. An awful lot of goals that we don't score.
Yeah, that's a long list. Right, well, let's just race into the goal we do score. So, comes from a set piece. Very quickly, Allan, do you think this is a free kick for Scott Brown? Is that warrants a free kick?
Not seen a great kind of replay of it. At the time, I thought it definitely was. I thought the Queen's Park guy who was having a proper wee temper tantrum to himself was a bit of a fanny, and I may have told him that because I was close enough for him to hear. But at the time, it's one of those. It's Scott Brown probably looking for it, but I think it probably was.
Yeah, so I disagree. I don't think I thought at the time I thought the same thing as I do kind of look at the highlights where both the Queen's Park, he puts his arm across Scott Brown, and Scott Brown goes to just lean into him, but he's not actually close enough. I think Scott Brown more or less just kind of falls over, and the referee, I think, has been kind that there's enough contact that he's given him the foul. I think it's quite illustrative on the highlights that like nobody is up in arms until after the referee's whistle's gone. There's almost a little bit of, in the away end, there's a little bit of like after he's already given it, when the foul is taking place, there's no reaction at all. Nobody is remotely bothered. But that's a minor point. The Josh Mullen, who I suspect his name will keep on coming up throughout this episode, puts this ball in and makes its way all the way to the back post for Darrell O'Connor to knock in with his right foot. Robbie, if this is one that we concede, is this a Leslie doing his dinger episode?
Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of goals that we do are at the moment, in particular, Leslie doing his dingers. I'd probably add it to a spreadsheet as he does, but one thing, just watching the highlights back, it's even the phase of play before the free kick's givens, also from a Josh Mullen free kick. So that was in itself quite interesting. Really good to see him back in the team, having a positive influence. It's going to be a frustrating one from Queen's Park perspective to lose that goal. O'Connor just kind of shrugs off his man, gets in, and it's a good finish as well. He's got to. How often do you see ones like that fly? Well, not into the back in the stand as such for Queen's Park, probably off onto the side street there. But it was a very, very well timed run and finish from O'Connor, to give him his credit.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who it is that's covering him there. Is it Carrick, the boy that was playing the centre half in the first half? Did they take him off at half time?
Yeah, I think they did.
They did.
Quite a kind
Which
of
is
tough.
actually the point where the game completely changed for me, because they moved the left back. Is it Shields, the young left back?
Shields
moved him into centre half. He headed everything all day, mostly to be fair, unopposed, but he headed everything all day.
More on that to come. Allan, anything else to say on the goal? It's almost so straightforward. There's not a lot to say about it, is there really?
No, I mean, it's a lovely ball by Josh Mullen. Really, really, it's one of those really tough ones to defend. The keeper probably can't really come for it, because if he misses it, then he leaves his goal open, or potentially someone gets a head in it in front of it. It's just that really difficult area. And fair play to Darragh O'Connor, he gets in there and gets a good hit on it. And it was one of those, you felt we didn't deserve to be behind at that point. You got there and you thought, we've got a lot of penalty box entries here. I feel, that we're doing well. It's a really well taken goal. It's a goal you don't score if Josh Mullen's not in the team, quite frankly, because nobody else puts balls in like that.
Do you know something as well? I think the Mullen actually, and maybe I'm just clutching for optimism in this game, but I actually think Mullen deserves a lot of credit for, to me, what appeared the kind of deliberate misstep to begin with, which then unlocks the movement of the defence. So it's the kind of stilted run, and he doesn't hit it, and then Queen's Park are kind of sixes and sevens at that point, and then again that's when the ball goes in. So it's easy to point to, could Queen's Park be defending that better? I think that immediate few seconds before the ball struck actually is what's pulling the strings and opens up the defence. So I think there's a lot of praise has to go to Mullen for not only the ball in, but the actual routine.
And Blair, at that point, are you thinking, right, okay, lost a sloppy goal, but back level now, time to go and take control of this game?
Yeah, actually, completely that. It always sounds sour when you get beat and you go, they weren't very good. They didn't have to be very good. And that's actually the most frustrating thing about the whole day. That Queen's Park weren't very good. There were definitely phases of play where they were clearly sat in and trying to catch us on the break. And they were relatively good at it, to be fair. I thought Aidan Connolly was Aidan Connolly. Great on the ball, carries the ball really well, moves it on really well. But we were camped out in their half. I mean, before the goal, after the goal, pretty much for the remaining 70 minutes of the game, the majority of it was played in the Queen's Park half, which weirdly Barry Robson seems to think is a major plus. and I kind of get that it's better than not being in their half for the entire 70 minutes, but I'd rather we were in their half for 1 minute and scored like what they did, than being in there for 70 minutes and doing nothing with it. But yeah, I genuinely did at that point. I thought, yeah, we're all right. Like, we've cancelled out the stupidity. And now it's a case of kind of chipping away at them. The goal will come. They look pretty suspect, particularly at the back. And as I said, I think the manager deserves a lot of credit for the change he made at half-time, because I can only assume that's tactical, taking the young centre-half off and moving the left-back in, because he was brilliant at centre-half. And the left-back never had anything to do, really, other than trying to stop Josh Mullen crosses, which neither of them were able to do in the first half. So you might as well move your better header out of the ball into the middle.
Yeah, I mean, on that point about I suppose it's the pattern of this next section of the game, which I suppose is basically between our goal and their second goal.
Yeah.
At the time So before they got the second, what I was thinking with that was that it was an improvement on the last game at Airdrie, which had a kind of similar pattern in the sense of, again, as you say, with all due kind of deference to the fact that they won this game, they weren't playing very well. We were, I think, visibly what should have been the better side, if that makes sense. But with the Airdrie game, it felt like it was still very toing and froing. Like we weren't really controlling the game. With this one yesterday, it felt like we did have more of an element of control. Whether that's just simply we had more possession or whatever it was. But as time goes on, and obviously we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this, I'm sure. Like that, I think for the beginning of that kind of period, and as it straddles half time, you're like, oh, actually, we're controlling this game. We're kind of turning this screw. And at a certain point, it starts to tail off and then trends the other way, where you're like, oh no, actually, we're doing nothing. We're not getting anywhere. We're not doing anything. And then the thought starts to come in of, they're going to catch us on the break here. And maybe that's just natural football fans' pessimism, but it also happened to turn out to be exactly what happened. Just to come back to the kind of events of the first half, the next couple of chances, certainly as far as the highlights are concerned, you've got Scott Brown kind of running clean through, and his low shot is kind of fairly easily turned away by Callum Ferry. And then there's a header that Scott Brown has that goes wide. Robbie, without being too critical of Scott Brown, is this yet again, I suppose, the price you pay for not having a dedicated number 10? That a lot of your better chances are falling to someone who's quite simply not a goal scorer?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment of it. There's two ways you could either look at fixing it. You could either have a left winger in there and you've got Easton centrally, or you can have Easton out wide cutting in, and then you've got that number 10. It's just symptomatic of it, and I think that, Callum Ferry handled that sort of shot from Brown relatively straightforwardly, as you'd expect. We did sort of touch upon Callum Ferry getting a bit of stick from the Queen's Park fans, but he's gradually been recovering. And I came out the game yesterday thinking, oh, it's Callum Ferry, he's done as usual. But then looking back, I don't think we really particularly tested him. We had plenty of balls into the box, but there wasn't any where you thought, oh, that's going to be one for there was the sort of double save, but even then you're thinking probably should be doing better with both of those, but we'll come to that in due course. But yeah, to get back to your original point, I feel like it is an area of weakness within the squad that we've not got that sort of number 10 stroke, another alternative to be able to bring in, because it feels like we're quite heavily stacked at the moment just in terms of right wingers and a lack of number 10s.
Yeah, the other sort of chance that's in the highlights in the first half is it's a Jack Hamilton header. This is something that Scott pointed out after the derby, which I've now been kind of paying attention to, and he's so bang on with this that Jack Hamilton he's half a second too early for every header that he goes for, and it just seems like this is it's a good example of exactly this, because when he makes contact with the ball, he's on the way down and he's also leaning back a bit. So his header, the ball flies off his forehead up into the air and the ball goes twice the height of the crossbar. And it's something that, you see it in this game a fair bit. We've seen it a lot. And since Scott said it, I've been paying attention to it. I don't know whether that's just that's a technique thing. Is that something that can be coached? But there's other examples in this game that we'll come to. He's just he's not making the most of the chances that he does get. And as Barry Robson was keen to point out, we had 30 or 40 crosses by his count within our 56 penalty box entries. And I've said it, some of you guys have said it as well. Earlier in the season, was like, oh, if we could just get some crosses into Jack Hamilton. And then last week, it's like, oh, Jordan Docherty got that cross into Jack Hamilton. That's what he needs. 30 or 40 crosses. But too many of them, it's like that, where you're like, you're not even making the goalkeeper work. The goalkeeper's not even remotely concerned about it. That, I think, and listen, that's not just on him. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the second half, but I think that is a big problem, put it that way. You know, the trying to find ways to play to Jack Hamilton. I don't know, because that feels to me like that should have been the one where you're like, yeah, there you go. That's the one that's purpose built for you. There's 30 crosses to go and attack. Allan, in terms of really those 2 points together, I mean, because really what you're looking at, your central attack there is Jack Hamilton supported by Scott Brown. Given the options that Barry Robson's got available to him, I mean, is there a better alternative? Ultimately, is it just a case of those are the tools you've got?
There probably is, but it probably takes, like, someone like, say, Dylan Easton up there would maybe be a better option than Brown, but then you're taking Dylan Easton away from where he's most effective, so that maybe counters that a little bit.
More on that later.
Well,
Yeah.
I suppose the ultimate answer is based on the way we need to set up. I don't know that there is. You know, yes, we've got Lewis Vaughan sat in the stand, who absolutely is a better option up there with him, but he's not an option at the moment. Maybe Callum Smith, but you know, we don't know, because when we brought him on, he played out on the left. So, and we put Dylan Easton in there, and it didn't really work. So maybe I've just gone completely against the point I already made. I think the simple answer is probably not. We're stuck with it, and I think that comes back to our old favourite topic of player recruitment.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I'm sure we'll come back to that in due course as well. We do that as we get to half time. The game's kind of rumbling on. Certainly the first kind of 15 minutes of the second half, it's kind of more of the same. It's a lot of crosses, not leading to an awful lot of chances. The sort of standout, really, Robbie, as you just mentioned, Callum Ferry is a double save here. So Jordan Docherty, first of all, it's a corner, I think, from Josh Mullen. Jordan Docherty doesn't quite get the kind of cleanest of headers on it. He basically heads it down onto his own shoulder. And then a combination of Ferry and the crossbar keep it out. And then Jack Hamilton gets a second bite at it, which Callum Ferry claws away. Blair, just give me your overall impression of this little episode, please.
Yeah, so as you say, another really, really good ball for Josh Mullen, like begging to get buried. And Doherty completely mistimes a header. That's the first. I must admit, and it's funny because in real time, I did come out thinking, like, Callum Ferry, by the way, because we're obviously so much kind of further down the pitch, you're looking along it. It looked to me like he'd got really good connection on the header. It was relatively point blank, but that Ferry had made a good save. And that Hamilton had actually done everything he could to get it away from the goalie and up into the top corner. So in real time, I was thinking it was all right. And then you watch the replay, and the effort for Doherty, he didn't have a good game yesterday, I think it's fair to say. And actually, I'm quite comfortable saying that because it's the first time I think I've ever even thought it. He's been so good for us that even when he's average, you kind of look at it and go, it's not a good game for him because
he just saves his mistakes for Queen's Park away. That might be it, because he had one in the 5-1 game that's led to them scoring.
That's right. The Hamilton header, like I say, at time of watching, I didn't think it was as bad as what it is. So if you kind of if you treat it the way we treated a few of the goals, like the Morton goal last week and then the first Dunfermline goal the week before, or 2 weeks before, sorry, you kind of work back from the finish. You think, actually, a bit of improvisation because he's right underneath it and he's actually done well to kind of, from where he is, to actually get it goalward and to get it relatively away from the goalie. It's up into the top corner. He's done everything right. And then you look at it and kind of analyse what he's done. And why has he run under the ball in the first place? That's the bit I can't quite get my head round. Like, it's like there's no... And maybe, do you know what? I'm not a footballer, so I'm maybe talking absolute crap. But to me, looking in the stand, it just looks like he's not read it at all. The ball's come at him, and he's right underneath it, and he's arching backwards. And to be fair to him, at that point, it is relatively good technique at that point to get that ball back goalwards, but it's all of his own doing. Just really frustrating. And it kind of, as a microcosm, that sums up our day. You know, our best defender, pretty much actually one of our best players all season, shouldering the ball at the goal, and then our target man striker running underneath it. Like, it's just really poor.
Greg, well, first of all, I agree with everything Blair said there. Do you agree with that? Is that... I mean, I suppose fundamentally, did Jack Hamilton have to score there?
I don't know if he had to score, but well, in isolation, he doesn't have to score. No, I think he can be kind of let off the hook to some extent, but I think holistically, based on his own performance and input, then in a different sense, he has to score there. I think we've hummed and hawed about Jack Hamilton for long enough about, Robbie saying he's not a target man, he's not a poacher, he's not. And we've talked about injuries, we've talked about the fact that he's coming back. I'll go back to a point I made a couple of months ago, last month, about the whole, we're 2.5 years in to a 3-year deal now. We've not seen the Jack Hamilton that we thought we were getting when we signed him. And listen, I'm really loath to... It's not a criticism on a personal level. I've no doubt he's a stand-up guy. We keep saying, what kind of striker is he? I'll tell you what kind of striker he's not, is the kind of striker we're needing at the club right now. And that's that for me, and it's only my humble opinion, he's not what we're needing. We're not getting anywhere near enough from him. We're not getting enough goals from him, and that's fine. If he is then the target man that's facilitating goals all over the place, we're not getting that from him. Also, that he doesn't even have to be getting direct assists. If he's holding the line really well and kind of keeping other teams, we're not getting that from him. I think he's shot for confidence at the minute, but equally there probably is an element of like long balls into him aren't working. But I mean, come on, Robson's seen him on the training ground every day. This is the tactic we're playing. You have to assume, maybe more on that later, that Robson's picking up on the strengths of players and maybe playing to them. I'm just not seeing it with Jack Hamilton, and so no, I don't think he has to score yesterday with that specific chance. But I don't think he would have scored regardless. I just don't think it's working for him.
Robbie, are you prepared to offer a defence of Jack Hamilton here in the face of some things that we've just said?
No, not really as such. I think that I've maybe been quite critical, I would say, in terms of the opportunity there for that one, maybe more than the other guys have. I think the thing is, again, you talk about recruitment, and this is probably a good example. Like, if a player is in that position, I feel like he needs a bit dropped out the team, honestly, just for put on the bench. But then we've not got anyone to sort of back that up or to be able to facilitate it. And I think that's probably a valid point that people sort of, it's gradually became more true over time. And he scored last week, so you're going to keep him on the pitch right from the start. But it just feels like with the options that we've got, we're not using generals. He's coming on at the end, and it's a very limited impact. And we didn't really see, again, anything to sort of say, right, you're going to start him over Jack Hamilton based on the performance yesterday. But I would love for Jack Hamilton to prove everyone wrong. We've seen it before with other players in the Rovers support. Like, you remember towards the end of last season, Josh Mullen was getting absolutely horrific stick from certain sections of the sport. Not everyone. There was plenty of people still sticking up for him, still looking at him and saying, yeah. But you could sort of back that up with the stats. I would hope that with Jack Hamilton, I would be really, really keen to know what would work for him in terms of how to get the best out of him. Does he find playing as a 2 easier? But it's so much ground to be given up for one player to be able to try and get the best out of. I think it's just one of those ones across the board. I mean, we've asked the question for a while, like, are we going to create chances? And then you bring in Josh Mullen and he has a really, really good game yesterday, but there's just nothing there. And I think it just lends itself to the criticism. I really hope that he can bounce back, but I think that I can understand why there's so much cynicism, for lack of a better word, to sort of to support the argument with it going forward. And I think that, yeah, it's got to ask the question about, like, what options are there and what can we do to try and sort of mitigate this and add a bit more firepower, because it's just, if we're having games like yesterday, nobody's going to benefit, whether it's him, whether it's us, across the piece.
Yeah, you've got 19 players in the division have scored more goals than Jack Hamilton so far this season. Dylan Easton being one of them. And it's just like,
he has the same number of goals as Paul Hanlon.
Like, it's
sorry, you throw it in the mix. Like, I mean, we've seen it for years now. Like the the Championship, the difference between looking up the way and looking down the way is a striker. A decent striker at this level will cover a multitude of sins. And case in point, look at the guy leading the line on the other side of the park. Queen's Park aren't great, but they're getting goals, and they'll probably then, as a result, be fine. But we've seen it time after time after time that if a team's getting goals, they can get away with it not clicking everywhere else. And maybe that is unfair, because maybe that puts a lot of pressure on Jack Hamilton, and maybe that's maybe not his bag to hold. Well, yeah, that is Robson's fault. But I think if the team is creating these chances, is getting your 56 penalty box entries, is getting your 30 to 40 cross, the chances are there. Okay, they're not all gilt-edged chances that are going to get you goals. But the law of averages, which generally I hate anyway, but the law of averages would suggest if you're putting that many crosses in a game, if you're entering the box that many times in a game, you're going to get enough chances that you should be comfortably over the course of a season into double figures. It's just not happening.
It's a really good point. It's just the one that comes to mind is Zach Rudden at Queen's Park last season, where the fans didn't like him. They're like, he's not very good, doesn't really seem to be doing much, but he was basically the only striker they had. So he was playing as a big number 9 every single week, and he scored a reasonable number of goals over the course of the season. It must have been in the region of 10 goals in the season. And it feels like that's almost like a universal truth. Like, if you play as the striker for 36 games, just by the way that football works, it's a tight division, you should get enough chances to score a reasonable number of goals. And it seems like Jack Hamilton's underperforming even that.
I think another example, like this season, Ewan Henderson at Airdrie, 6 goals for the season so far. Airdrie by no means a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we say that, or I say that, and next week they're coming to town, tempting fate something fiercely. But it's just, you need more from a number 9, and I think it's one of those ones. It's absolutely brutal to say. I really, really want Jack Hamilton to do well. Lovely lad. Like, I've only spoken to him, I think, once, but really, really good guy. And I would love it if we could get a tune out of him. But at the same time, it's one where, it's basically piss or get off the pot effectively in terms of your front line. It's brutal to say, but
that I think
we need that.
Is a pertinent point, because there's nobody else.
Yeah,
that's probably the thing. Like, you alluded to it already, but so
that, we've not seen
Vaughan's the obvious one, right?
Yeah, so Vaughan Jennels, because Hamilton's not doing it. Like, Hamilton's basically running about doing nothing. What do you lose at this point?
Or even actually try them both together.
That I think is the fundamental issue.
For me, it comes back to, once again, and it's a point we've all made many times on this podcast, Robson has got a style of play and a system that he wants to play, which is pish anyway, but never mind. And we don't have the right players to play the system he wants to play. Like, and if that's the situation, you've got to just work with what you've got. And I get they're professional footballers and they should be, in theory, should be able to play any style. But it's no working. So pick a system that suits the players you have at your disposal instead of trying to shoehorn people into positions they're not comfortable with or get them to play a style they're not comfortable with just because you're so damn pig-headed that they have to play that way. It's not working.
I do think the thing with Hamilton as well is, definitely is, it's being compounded by the other options around them. Because, again, and I realise this is the example we use all the time, but it's quite simply, it's the most simple example available to us. If Sam Stanton's playing in that number 10, there's a reasonable chance that sometimes when Jack Hamilton does hold the ball up, or even sometimes when he's not trying to and his first touch just gets away from him, but the boy running in behind is Sam Stanton, or any like the other kind of number 10s you see in this division, like a Kyle Turner or Stevie Allan, somebody like that. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to do an awful lot, but you play the ball off to them, and actually they have this little moment of inspiration where they'll go and they'll do it. The only player we've really got who does that is Easton, and I think he needs to be off the left, which I realise you then create this issue. Because, as I say, Scott Brown, the greatest will in the world, is never going to be that guy. He's got 6 goals for the Rovers in all competitions. Like, he's never going to be a guy who's going to score goals. As I say, in that first half, when he's running through, you're like, this is going to have to be like a turn-up for the books for him to stick this past the goalkeeper here. And I think there is an element of all of this that is also self-fulfilling. Because Scott Brown's thinking that as well. When he's running through there, he's not thinking, I'm going to bury this. He's thinking, I'm going to try and bury this. And then, like, Jack Hamilton, I just think, basically he's at the point where he needs saved, but he needs saved from himself. Because his body language, he looks like he's beating himself up constantly. And it doesn't have to be an awful lot that goes against him, but you see like the slump of the shoulders and the shake of the head. And, like I was saying yesterday, he looks like the kid who's been picked last for PE, where he's like, I didn't even want to be playing football. I want to be in the computer labs playing solitaire, but you have made me come out here, and now you're giving the ball to me, and then you're shouting at me for not doing the right thing. Like, leave me alone. Now that's obviously an exaggeration, but that, like, he's not in that like killer number 9 mindset of like, missed that, doesn't matter, I'll get the next one. You can see it. That's not the way he's thinking. And this is where, again, I mean, to your point, this is where you would want to then bring him out the firing line, put somebody else in. But this is the problem that you've got, is you don't have Vaughan. Callum Smith is obviously on the way back. Apparently we're using him as a left winger anyway. Don't know. Let's come back to that in a second. Or Josh Jennings. And, I mean, have to go by the fact that he's not getting game time, that he's not good enough. We just have to, like, I think there is no other interpretation than that in the eyes of Barry Robson, he's not a championship player. And that then, I think, has to then be...
Going to your press interviews, though, because he was talking about it. We've not used him as much because of international duty and familiar. Just seems a bit like nonsense.
Just
absolute
nonsense.
nonsense.
Who cares? Like, aye. So... aye. Right, so there's a Josh Mullen has a shot over the bar at some point. I mean, it would have been very fitting had that gone in, because he really was
It would have,
just the only one who looked like doing anything. And I mean, to be fair, if you're playing a game that might as well have just been called crosses, like Josh Mullen's going to be the best at it. That's
if you're tuning into this podcast at this point and you're not familiar with how Rovers work, you probably think that this is a totalitarian regime run by Josh Mullen and we're just the state propaganda, because it's just effectively like, Josh Mullen, what a fucking guy, by the way. Like, he was so good yesterday. Yeah.
But that, to be fair, it's like if you signed Usain Bolt for your football team and then just wanted to sprint everywhere. Like, yeah, of course he looks like the best player, because that's the only thing you've tried to do all afternoon.
But right, see, this is where I've got the biggest issue with what Barry Robson did yesterday, and it's the bit where I am 100% in the get rid of him camp. Because, see, at kickoff yesterday, do I think he got the setup wrong? Do I think he got the formation wrong? Do I think he got the team selection wrong? I have to say no to all of the above. But when you go 1-0 down to Queen's Park at home and then they decide they're going to have 10 men behind the ball the entire game, do we need to change the game plan? Yes. Did he change the game plan? No. And then the really galling bit of all of it is we're all crying out for, get another striker on the park, get Callum Smith on, get Gentles, get another one on, take one of the midfielders off because you didn't need 3 of them anymore, get one of them off, take Matthews off, drop Brown back again, and actually get another striker in there, because all you're doing at the moment is having 56 penalty box entries to one person. He's just constantly, same thing. Let's cross the ball to Jack Hamilton. He's not getting any joy. Let's cross it again. Still not getting any joy. Do you know what we should do? We should cross the ball to Jack Hamilton because he might get some... Nope, nah, never got any joy this time. So at some point, you have to either go... And this is what I'm saying about, do you have to just keep playing him? Maybe. But could you not give him a partner? Because at that point,
this is...
Put another striker on.
Exactly. So this is the thing. With the substitution comes in after 63 minutes. Still plenty of time for that game to go on. But he doesn't change the system at all. He actually sticks incredibly rigidly to this 4-2-3-1 that he's been playing. But there's no progression of the ball. As we've just said, all we're doing is just giving the ball to Josh Mullen and then watching him cross the ball to Ewan Murray. Or the boy Shields to Harry. I mean, this is the other thing. Like, who are we playing today? Ewan Murray. Class. Will we fire the ball at his head all afternoon? He'll hate that.
Yeah, totally.
But sorry, I'm trying to make 4 points at once. So he puts Callum Smith on to the left wing, which, I mean, I don't know which of his skills that's supposed to make the most of. Callum Smith, I think, is quite a funny player. He seems quite undefined as a player. He's just a sort of generic forward. And I don't really mean that in a bad way, but it's just he's never outright any one thing or another. But I would say left wing is the least of those. So actually when he came on, I thought, well, that's fine. If what you're going to do is say, well, this is nominally, this is a 4-2-3-1, but actually Callum Smith is going to spend the entire of the rest of the game being the man on the back post. So actually it's more of a lopsided formation. So you've still got Josh Mullen on the right wing putting crosses in, but now you've got Hamilton in the middle and you've got Smith effectively as a second striker. It's that's quite a good idea. Didn't do that at all. Just played him as an orthodox left winger and kept Dylan Easton as a 10.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now putting crosses in. We're still putting crosses into nobody. And now, I mean, arguably, you get somebody slightly better suited on the edge of the box to pick up the second balls. But it's have we just given up on winning the headers then? As you've already said, the thing, you have to just put 2 strikers in the box. You have to ask a question when these crosses are coming in, because those 2 boys would have won those headers for the rest of the week up against Jack Hamilton by himself.
When did we decide
the moment
that 4-4-2 isn't a thing anymore?
I don't know. I don't know when it
seriously,
happens.
it's coaches are scared of being oh, well, he's just playing a 4-4-2. He's a dinosaur from the 90s.
So was Fergie.
Well, Derek McInnes is top of the Premiership, playing a 4-4-2 more often than not. But again, I think that's just a case of fitting the players you've got available to you. It would have been a better fit to who we have. And I don't think the starting lineup, I think, is perfectly fine. That 4-2-3-1 works, but the way the game developed, it was such an odd decision to do the same thing.
I have to say, I'm not entirely sure I agree that the decision was odd in the first instance, because I think you addressed one of the problems, and one of the problems was you had Scott Brown bombing about on the edge of the box, not really offering you much. So now you've got Easton, and you think, right, so we've addressed that. And if the ball's coming into the back post, you've got Smith. Smith's a hard-working kind of player. He'll keep running and he'll cause a bit of issues. So is it the best decision? No. Is it the worst decision? Honestly, at that instant moment, I wasn't going... I kind of saw what he did and thought, oh, okay. Yeah, no, right, okay, let's see. But after 5 minutes, there was not a single person in that stadium other than Barry Robson who couldn't see that it wasn't working, and then was the time to not make another substitution necessarily, but take the personnel you've got and change the shape slightly. Just put Smith on alongside Hamilton and just play him as a second striker, or get Gentles on and play him as a sec. Just like we just spent a whole afternoon asking Josh Mullen to put good balls into the box, and he did. To nitty.
Yeah. And that's a thing. Sorry,
no. So I was going to say, I do wonder, playing devil's advocate to some extent, if Robson thought, because like without being too blunt, the left flank yesterday was non-existent. I thought Stevenson was very poor in terms of his distribution, in terms of his kind of general getting forward and keeping the pace of the game going. I thought Easton off the left was generally very poor yesterday. So there's maybe an element of Robson's thinking, if we get Smith on from the left, it doesn't radically change the formation, but it might change the approach, in that if we can get the ball more through the left, Smith's maybe not going to cross it in. Maybe he is. Maybe Robson's thinking, oh, that'll do it. Switch crosses from the other side, and Jack Hamilton will get a hat-trick. But I think it's maybe more likely we're going, actually, if we start to switch it through the left, Smith might get some joy cutting in, and maybe having a go. It's at the point where that doesn't happen, I think it makes a mockery of the whole switch. And as I say, playing devil's advocate, maybe that's not Robson's fault. Maybe that's just an on-pitch dynamic that didn't quite pan out. I can just about see the logic, though, that the left side was non-existent, and OK, Mullen was doing incredibly well getting the balls in from the right. That wasn't working in itself. So you could argue Robson did change it, did try and kind of vary it up. It just was in a way that, with the benefit of hindsight, ended up being toothless.
But it was 70 minutes.
I know.
Actually, before that, 60 minutes, he made the change. Like, there was so much time for him to then reassess and go.
Oh, totally.
Because I agree with you. Like, genuinely, the change when he made it, it's not probably what I would have done, but I could see some logic in it. It wasn't working. Change it again. Like, do something. But now we'll just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, it's with the benefit of hindsight, but addressing that same dynamic, I don't see why after 5 minutes you don't just effectively cede that left-hand side and just go, right, well, not doing anything on that side anyway. So rather than putting Callum Smith stuck out there to continue doing nothing, just don't bother. Just leave Carlo Pignatello at right back by himself and then put Smith further in and actually force their defence to react to it. He just carried on doing the same job. He's like, all right, cool, it's not Dylan Easton anymore, it's Callum Smith. But he was never asked any different questions. And you'd probably rather be up against the greatest will in the world, up against Callum Smith than Dylan Easton anyway. Right, let's get to the goal, because I think we're building up a bundle of energy to go at the manager in a minute. So the goal does come. I don't think at any point you would say Queen's Park were sort of knocking on the door or anything to that effect, but they did look dangerous. They did certainly at all times looked like they had this in them. Scott Brown, I think, has to take a fair share of the blame. Now, whether it's just because we were pushing on, whether it was because he was sleeping for a second, he is too far advanced compared to his man. He's left Ross McLean goal side, and it's an easy pass to Ross McLean. He gets kind of 20 yards of clean air to run in. He slips the ball into Josh Fowler, who doesn't snatch at it, does very, very well to cut inside Darrell O'Connor before finishing. Robbie, give me your thoughts on the goal, please.
Yeah, it's just, like you say, it was just all the work in the second half. For all we had opportunities in Queen's Park, as you mentioned, they weren't out the game by any stretch of the imagination, but we were just completely undone. And it just seemed a very simplistic way to lose a goal. I mean, they'd had a couple of sort of half moments, Queen's Park, but never anything, and it was the real sort of main clean-cut chance for them in the second half, and Fowler's absolutely clinical. I can see him. I know he's only on a one-year deal with Queen's Park. I'd sort of speculated online saying like he should go for a decent amount of money. Wouldn't surprise me if Queen's Park do accept a bid for him in January, because you know he's going to be in high demand. He's a very good player, and I think yesterday showed that. He's got the ability to probably play in the top flight, probably go on to a very decent level. wouldn't surprise me if a Hearts, Hibs, Dundee United are looking at him to be able to bring him in. But disappointing from a defensive side to see us sort of just, you could see it happening in the stages, and they're, again, probably not as egregious as the first goal, but still one where you look and you think we probably could be doing better over the course as a team. And then after that, it just seemed set in stone. You kind of thought there was always the opportunity for Queens to go and get a second, and that would heap a pile of pressure on us to be rash, and they could then just sit in and camp in. You look back to, if you listen to the pre-match podcast, a lot of the things that we spoke about, Queens haven't won at home since 4th of January this year. We mentioned Callum Ferry, we mentioned Josh Fowler coming back, and all three of them came to pass. So, blowing our own trumpet here, but yes, basically what we thought might happen did happen.
This finish, or the sort of turn and finish, without kind of flogging a dead horse, Allan, is that basically what we seem to be lacking at the moment? Can you imagine a Rovers player scoring that goal at any point in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
No. No. I mean, Lewis Vaughan's got it in him when he's fit. But yes, he's not been available in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so the simple answer is no. The other wee thing I know I shouldn't want to highlight positive things from our opponents, but taking the move back a wee bit, the touch and pass for Aidan Connolly was just sublime as well. It was a thing of beauty. I don't like to highlight positive things for the opponents, but yeah, it was just so nice. The goal itself, I mean, it's like, okay, are we going to try and defend it at some point? Like the run for the boy, like when Brown was kind of chasing him, not really, it's just, and then yeah, like you say, the turn and the finish again, really, really good for Fowler. Just top drawer striker play, and just something we just do not have in our locker at all at the moment.
See,
available to us.
You've just mentioned there, Allan. You know what it actually reminds me of? It reminds me of again, pretty bad comparison to make given how prolific he's been over his career, but for us at that point it was true, is John McGlynn's final season in his Mark 1 era, when we had Brian Graham. Now, the final 10 games of that season, Brian Graham, everything that Brian Graham touched turned to gold. That was sort of the first period where Brian Graham effectively became the player that we all know him. Before that, he'd kind of been cast off from Morton, not very good in the eyes of Scottish football. Went off for a hernia op, comes back, and then everything he does turns to gold. Aside from a red card against Ayr United, but we can leave that one. That's by the by. By that point, we had Damien Castle and Ovo back. But there was a goal that we scored where Brian Graham, we played against Falkirk. I think he might have got a hat-trick at their place. And there was a goal that he scored where it was over his shoulder and he just rifled it into the top corner. Now, obviously, that goal was an exceptionally high-quality one, but it's just one where there's ice in the veins. It's that cliche about a centre forward. You touched on it earlier on when you were speaking about like just needing the composure that maybe Jack Hamilton at the moment is just trying to block out the noise and just try and get that. But that seems to me how Fowler is and what he brings to the table for them. Like if you give him, I know we've gone on and we'll laugh about the post-match interview in due course, but
I'll not be laughing.
If you give him the opportunity to basically get 25 yards in front of goal, even if he's got the space and he's got time to think about what he's doing, there's going to be a good chance that he's going to get the ball into the back of the net.
I completely agree that the touch that he takes, his first touch, it's like pure instinct, but in that way of like he's completely backing himself. Because it's quite a risky touch to take. You know, it's not the easiest, it's not the route one thing to do, but it's the only touch he's ever going to take. And it completely takes Darragh O'Connor out of the game, and then he knows the finish he's going to put in as well. And it's just that. It's just that is a guy who's quite clearly on red hot form. That's just what that looks like. But it couldn't be further from what Jack Hamilton looks like, to go back to that. Just a slight aside on this as well. Aidan Connolly, very much enjoying this goal. I
Quite
don't know
right.
if you caught that in the highlights
Very
as they're
much.
celebrating. He's giving it large to somebody on the stand side, or whatever
He's
you call
waving,
it, box side.
literally waving at Barry Robson.
Yeah.
Waving.
He starts off. He
yeah.
seems like he's going at because it's so raised. It's kind of obvious that he's going
Yeah.
at the kind of box, and then has a go at Barry Robson as well. So, fair play, as is right.
Good on him.
I
Entirely.
still think it was the right decision to can him at the end of last season, to be honest, but controversial. But
I disagree.
Nah.
I think it was.
I'm going to do my usual and just take two opinions at the same time. I think at the time it felt right, but at the same time he'd have been better for us than others. Put it that way. He'd have improved our season so far if we still had him. Put it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
10 minutes left. There is a second substitution. Barry Robson does choose to let us see international superstar Josh Gentles on for Jack Hamilton. So, yeah. I don't know, maybe we'd only put in 28 crosses at this point, but decided that the one guy would fire them all out was now coming away for Josh Gentles. Blair, are you seeing anything from Josh Gentles in that 10 minutes?
No.
And also, are you happy enough with the decision to take Hamilton off by that stage?
I mean, I suppose I can't complain about Jack Hamilton's performance and then complain that he's taken off. But by the same token, as you kind of alluded to, the crosses were the only thing that we had. So, and it wasn't working. And Jack Hamilton wasn't. For me, the biggest issue with Jack Hamilton in that game was he never gambled ever. It was there was never a run in front of the defender, never a kind of a move across the front post. Apart from one, actually, he did do it once, and we got a corner from it. But to then put one of our other, I mean, I don't know if you can call it, like you said, he's undefined, Callum Smith, you can't really call him a striker, but another potential forward, and play him out wide left, and then go, right, we've got one more, and we're going to bring him on now, but we're going to take the other one off. So at no point are we ever going to have two people in the box waiting on a cross. And it's just, I don't know, like, it feels like self-sabotage at this point, because I can't understand how he can't see it. Unless, like I said, it's so clever that none of us understand it, because everybody in the crowd and everybody on, like all of us, all seem to be of exactly the same opinion about kind of where the failings are. Gentles, I've not seen enough of him, but I mean, I've kind of openly said I've watched him warm up and I wasn't convinced. So, nah, not really convinced at all. But at the same token, like I'm saying, can he really at this stage honestly do much worse or do much less than what we're getting? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't see what the hesitation is to use him, because it's no working without him. So chuck him in, and if it doesn't work, then you're not any worse off.
I'd really like to see more of him, but purely just to actually get a feel for what he's like and what is he supposed to be good at, and because
The opportunities when we do bring him on, though, it all seems to be the same type of game where we're kind of like chasing it at that point, and it's just like,
well, this is the contributes to the impression that I can't imagine he's very good. Basically, like I have a fundamental belief, and some things I'm going to say in about 10 minutes will contradict this, but a fundamental belief that most football managers aren't actively in the business of self-sabotage. Like, if you've got a striker and he looks really good, you'll play him. And again, I realise that there's things like Barry Robson not playing Sean Byrne when he's clearly our best midfielder at times and things like that. But I don't know. Whether it's, listen, maybe it's just a stigma that's attached to this co-op loan. Because that wouldn't surprise me if there's an element of, like, even just subconsciously, you're like, this kid's here because he's free. Like, is that just, I don't know. I'm speculating wildly, but
Tell you what, I would like to see more of though is like everyone else. I've no idea if I want to see more of Gentles, but and okay, a slight exaggeration, but it felt like he came on yesterday and just hung about the left wing regardless. So he didn't, to my eye, didn't spend a lot of time. Blair saying we didn't try with 2 in the box. I actually think the net result actually was with 0 in the box at some points because it was like in youth football sometimes when you see like 2 players either holding a bib between them or holding hands trying to catch other play. That's what Smith and Gentles were kind of like. You could have thrown a tea towel over them. What's going on there? So, I think, and I agree with Robbie's point that he's coming on late in games where generally things aren't going well. There's maybe a lot of pressure on him to come on and do something. But I wasn't overly impressed yesterday. But maybe a harsh barometer to use.
Yeah, maybe. Again, it would be nice to see somebody do something.
We're going to be raging if he actually started getting games and then started scoring. Like, why were we not playing this guy before? Because
and maybe that will be the case.
No, I'm very sceptical as to whether that would be the case. But
surprised if it was. Right, one other thing in the highlights, and just a quick other point I want to kind of mention. There's a handball claim in the highlights there. Scott Brown kind of hooks the ball into the arm of somebody. Sorry, I didn't know who it was. Allan, are you having this either at the time or having seen it back?
At the time, I was just like, couldn't even be arsed or feeling correct at that point. It was just like,
it was exactly the same.
Go and blow the fucking whistle and let me get him, man. Looking back at it, right, he's very close to Brown when Brown hits it. However, he's making himself bigger to try and block the ball. His arm's in an unnatural position, and it may have been going miles over the bar potentially, but it was a shot on goal that he's blocked with his arm. I actually think, with current rules, that's a penalty. It'd be probably a really harsh one, and I wouldn't be happy if it was given against us, but I think it probably was.
Yeah, it's another of these where it comes down to what should be a handball versus what is actually a handball in the rules. Because it's exactly that. It's the cross referencing point between distance and blocking a shot with your arm. Where, like, if that ball's not going anywhere near the goal, then it's definitely not a handball. But should you be blocking shots on goal with your hands? Probably not. Like, it's a tricky one. But no, actually, my overriding impression at the time was the same as you, where I was like, can I go home, please? Like, this has been dreadful, and I would like to leave. The other thing, there was Josh Ray went up for a corner, and the Rovers took it short and managed to get it in the box.
Jesus!
I'll see if we can see for that.
Honestly, some of this, and this isn't a uniquely a Rovers thing by any means at all. Sometimes, but you see this so often. And Greg knows this for sitting beside me. Some of the stuff that winds me up more than anything else, where it's like stupid stuff. So the last home game, there was one that stood out to me where a drop ball because must have been a Thistle player, possibly it might have been Morton. It was one of those two games.
Yeah, it
either a Thistle player or a Morton player get hurt. So it was a drop ball. So the ball went to Easton in a relatively promising position. And he had a good couple of minutes to think about what he wanted to do with it because their player was getting treatment. So we could have treated it like a set piece. We could have actually basically loaded the box or at least had a conversation about what we were going to do. So Dylan Easton's standing with the ball in his hand for a good couple of minutes. The referee comes over, says, right, Dylan, give me the ball. But drops the ball at his feet. And Dylan Easton turns around and plays the ball backwards to Darragh O'Connor, who's then like, what am I doing with this? It's like, you've got so much time to think about this. And it's the same as that, where like everybody's in the box. All we've done all afternoon is put crosses in the box. One more time. Like,
well, maybe did they see him walk with him wearing that, really hard to spot bright pink top?
just like some of that, it's like decision making, and I think that's the kind of stuff where the manager kind of carry the can for that. Like that's in game stuff, but but even that as well. Like the keeper starts to go up, and like under the right circumstances, like that's the best thing that ever. So you're like, oh, this could be incredible, and instead I was like just nothing. Because I think it's like if we scored for one of those corners, you're just a bit like, well, a point's better than nothing, but didn't really deserve it. Let's start kind of taking the game as a whole then, and get into the Barry Robson of it all, because I mean to try and let's start with some kind of mitigation or some kind of, I don't know, sympathy, maybe, I don't know, like. I don't think that was the worst we've played by any means at all. I don't think the setup was necessarily wrong. I think the obvious comparison, as I said earlier, is to that game at Airdrie, where we drew that one. I thought we were much worse, and that the team was put out in a sense that was much worse. But issues remain. Let's put it that way. So I suppose there's probably two angles that you can look at this from. Greg, I'll come to you first on this, but we'll all chip in for a fairly long amount of time, I imagine. We're very firmly, right? There's no getting away from it. We are very, very firmly in should the manager be sacked territory, right? That's quite clearly where we are. And I'd say I think there's two angles. There's deserve. Does the manager deserve to be sacked? Does he deserve more time? Does he deserve the chance to put this right? Blah, 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 blah. But then there is also belief. Do you believe he can actually fix it? So taking those points, taking everything else, where are you with this, Greg?
So I start, like you mentioned, I suppose, the sympathy element, and objectively, he possibly doesn't deserve to be sacked. Robson made a point himself that, the result going our way yesterday, we're potentially up to third on goal difference, etc. And you look at the league table, not the form table, but you look at the league table, and it's not panic stations. Some fans obviously are expecting to be consistently in and around the playoffs for the word go, and there to be no fluidity. It's just not going to happen in the Championship. Actually, there's too many peaks and troughs throughout a season that unless you're actively gunning for the title, you're going to be up and down. Do I believe that he can turn this around? No, I don't. We talked about this on the bus on the way home yesterday, and we were saying, listen, it's no Real Madrid we're going to watch. Like the Rovers are going to get beat more than their fair share of times. See if the Rovers are getting beat, and you can look at that and go, I can see what we're trying to do there. Like and actually, I've written in my notes here that Robson, he mentions right at the start about his penalty box entries and everything, and I've written, who cares? Later on, he mentions Robbie the Green, and pardon my French, but I've actually written, fuck off. Like I'm not interested in hearing about that. See if you can see green shoots of a performance, etc. I think you come away from a game like that yesterday and you go, maybe what Robson's saying, okay, maybe that felt a bit of a sucker punch, but there's next week. We're coming away yesterday, and I agree with you entirely. See if we had scored right at the end, I'm not sitting on the bus home feeling any better about things. And actually, instead of looking ahead to next week, it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. Like, there's no optimism. It's just the same turgid stuff over and over and over again. And it's now, see if you didn't know better, you'd think it was like a bit that Robson he's actually saying, just keep working, just keep working. We keep doing the same things, and it will come good. I'm sorry, again, I'm obviously not a football manager. I've not been involved in football. No, Barry. It's no. You have to change it. It's not just going to come good doing the same things over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you some of these quotes from this, because this is the bit I was like, I'm going to have to write these down. So, as you say, first of all, the first thing he says is, we put in 56 penalty box entries. Now, that is just like if you had a team of writers and you were like, right, we really need to wind everybody up. How are we going to start this interview? It's like XG's too on the nose. What's better than that? Well, penalty box entries class. So we put in 56 penalty box entries, 30 to 40 crosses, he says. Well, that can't possibly be right. That's an insane thing to say. But also, maybe it is. There was a lot
Honestly,
of crosses.
it wouldn't surprise me if it was 30 or 40 based on yesterday.
I think he's probably
He's including
counting
corners.
attempted crosses as well.
Yeah.
It's the,
He then says, you keep going, you keep doing the things, you keep putting the crosses in, you keep doing what you're doing. Next week, we go and play the same way we did today, and we make sure we put our chances away. Keep doing the things that you're doing, but just do them better. Nope. That's not.
It's real Gil Gunderson territory at The Simpsons. Like, honey, I almost made a sale today. Did you? No, but I was so close. It's proper to.
It's just the. Like, if only there was a famous idiom about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Like, it doesn't work. The worst thing is just keep on doing it. Like. And I don't think it's not like we were creating loads and loads of chances and like we hit the post, we hit the bar. Like the keeper had a good game. I don't think he was unbelievable. Like he's probably made, there's that double save where I think the first one probably comes off the bar anyway. Like he's not, I think we've all seen Callum Ferry have much better games than that, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this, when it comes to, as I say, there's like most managers, I imagine, who get sacked feel like they've been harshly treated and that they deserved more time. But ultimately, if you get to the point where you go, I don't think he's ever going to turn it around, like the time to do it is today, basically. Because otherwise it's just a stay of execution. I don't have the heart to finish my own points anymore. Blair, just come in on that, please.
Yeah, there's really no that much more to add with it though. And I listened back to the episode that we did post pars because I thought, like, was I a bit harsh in some of the stuff that I said? There was one line I said, and when I said it, I didn't think it sounded too bad. And when I listened back, I thought, that comes across really no very nice. And it
So when you called him stupid,
he's either no, but I never. In my defence, I never. What I said was either he's stupid or he thinks we're stupid. And I think I was wrong in that. Because basically I've come to the conclusion that he thinks we're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Is basically where I've got to. Because I don't think he's stupid, actually. I don't think he's very good at his job. But I don't think he's stupid. Because if he honestly watched that game yesterday, if he honestly gave a toss what we as a support think at this point, or the mood of the place and the feeling around the place, he wouldn't have said half of what he said in that interview yesterday. He wouldn't have. He only said those things because he basically either doesn't give a toss what any of us think, or he thinks that there's enough of a support that'll just lap up anything he says and doesn't really know any better and will be swayed by I mean, let's be honest, right? If you were living in, I don't know, Malaysia and you were basically just looking at flash scores and you looked at the stats, you'd be thinking, bloody hell, Rovers have absolutely smashed them and Queen's Park have completely got away with one there. Nah, that was not the flavour of the game at all. It was very much they caught us on the break and, you know, but did they deserve to win that game yesterday? Maybe not. But did we deserve to win that game yesterday? Maybe not. Like there was no clear, man, we were really good yesterday, but we didn't get the rub of the green, which is his other line. Like just nah. Like you said, Greg, fuck off. I'm not having it.
But we definitely didn't deserve to win that game yesterday.
No.
Like not even close. Like 40 crosses is fine, but like it's not the point of the game. Like we never looked like scoring from those crosses. I mean, I think quite simply the fact that the goal that we got was from a set piece. Next best chance that we got was from a set piece. Like, and that there just needs to be more to it. And I get that you can look at it and go, look, he's not got a huge number of attacking options. But at the same time, as you said, Robbie, he's missing 3 players. Now, Vaughan is a huge miss, right? Because he is a quality of player that you just do not have otherwise. But there is an element of, look, you've got to be able to factor in Lewis Vaughan not being available to some degree. Like that's you can't go in
he
and
also
say,
doesn't use him properly, even when he did have him. So
well, this,
I'm not
to this,
entirely
to
sure
this,
it's much of an argument either.
To the next point, I said this I think a couple of weeks ago, but the next one he's missing is Richard Chin. He's only starting him once, so he can't be that. Like you can't really be giving it like, oh, I can't believe I don't have the guy I've only played one time. And then the other boy's missing the centre half. So this is where you come back around to, you come back around to, well, you put the squad together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have the direct quote handy, but he says he basically more than once reiterates about anybody there today who saw the game would see that it was a sucker punch from Queen's Park, and actually I think that's really disingenuous to Queen's Park. As much as I think it wasn't a free flowing game from them. There's more than one way to play football, and Queen's Park played their game well enough to get a win. They were more than worthy of the 3 points. But equally, Robson's going, anybody here, anybody who saw the game, Barry, the 5 of us were at the game, and not one of us agrees with you. And okay, we're not necessarily the barometer of that, but look at social media, and I get it. You take social media with a pinch of salt, but look at the Twitter replies, look at the Facebook replies. Like he's kind of very much out on his own with these points, and it comes back to Blair. I agree with you completely. It's this sort of. I've seen the phrase a few times now, gaslighting the fans, and kind of just my point would be like, don't piss on my shoes and tell me it's raining.
Mm-hmm. See, to come back to the content that's been discussed in the interview, like when do you ever hear about a manager that's won a game talking about successful penalty box entries? You don't. Just
never mind the goals.
Yeah, like it's just come on. It's so basic, but again, it probably goes back to the intro that we had a few months ago talking about the Nick Cage films and The Rock with Sean Connery. What is it? Winners and what they do and what losers are talking about. But just with it, there's intrinsically, it's just I shared right after the game, I quote the post-match interview, saying that with it, Steve Clarke, again, go back to him, of Partick Thistle variety rather than Scotland manager, shared a piece about Thistle and how they're getting their success this season. They score a 90th minute equaliser, admittedly an absolute howler by Cade Melrose, Airdrie goalkeeper, but the success that they're getting is from shots outside the box. It's basically coming out, edge of the box, taking shots, having opportunities. You look at Queen's Park today, there are 2 goals. Breaks of the ball where they get forward, they're advancing, they've got a dangerous forward, and you can see the strategy there. And admittedly, they're below us in the league, but resources are probably going to be a factor in that. Again, you look at injuries as well. With Rovers, it just feels like it's a very low bar, and the fan base just aren't entertained. And I think the difficulty is that we've had John McGlynn's came back from Mark II, and he's done really well to get a team that's been good attacking football. You saw the structure there. Players like, you would kill for a player like Brad Spencer at the moment, a water carrier who'll basically grab the ball and take it into midfield, and then he'll start something and do something with it. We don't have that in terms of it. With all due respect to the players that do have it, I don't think it's a lack of effort. And then you look at Ian Murray, and we edge out games, and we have that really, obviously in his first season again, he's restricted by the budget, hangover probably from the McGlynn time in terms of the deals and how things were set up there from what we've heard. And then you go in, and then look, people are very valid to point to Ian Murray's goes through that season, gets us to second, does really well. We obviously, a lot of games we're winning with late winners. It's exciting. We've got a good structure within our team, and obviously in that January we go out and sign a few interesting signings, and it doesn't work out. But then Murray gets canned on the first day of last season, and then you're asking the question, well, if that was the case then, and that wasn't good enough at that point, why is it at the moment? And I get that we've got a mid-table budget, so maybe we should temper our expectations. But the product's so far off it in terms of the structure and where we're at and what we're going. And I do think that comes down to the manager. I think that the players have shown before under different managers that they can step up. I do wonder if there's a lack of belief there in terms of what the manager's trying to do and where he's going. But he's lost it. And to go back to your initial question when you started the chat about the manager, about if or what, I think it's just a question of when he goes, let's be honest. Like, he's not going to turn people around. It's one where people are pretty entrenched in their views now. I've been relatively sort of willing to give a bit of leeway, but at the moment, if you're going away to a team that haven't won at home since 6th of January, you go against if you go against a Morton team last week where they got beaten comfortably by St Johnstone. Again, these teams will make changes to try and affect the game, and obviously each game's treated on its own merits, but we just look a bit directionless at the moment. So really keen to see how the next few weeks pan out, but it's just not any grounds for enthusiasm. Yet still, we're only 3 points off third place. So it makes zero sense whatsoever. We're 3 points off of third place for now, which I think is probably the key thing to say. I think the quicker we exact change is probably the better.
A couple of points here. Ian Murray's last game in charge, he gave what was a very bizarre and ultimately, screwed himself with his post-match interview where he said, I don't know what's going wrong and I don't know how to fix it. I would argue coming out and saying, see that shit that just didn't work for 90 minutes there? We're just going to try that again next week. I would say that's worse. It's fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
But also
Alan, that's no fair. He's going to do it, but he's going to do it better.
We're going to do it better. That's the key bit.
He's a genius.
Come on, we're not just doing the same shite. It's the same shite, but better.
But then the other point is whether you have confidence in him to turn that around. Now, you could argue that, if we go out and beat Airdrie 3 or 4-0 on Saturday, you think, excellent, we've turned it around. We went out and had a really good performance against Partick Thistle a couple of weeks ago. Did well. We were far from world beaters, but we beat a very, very good team. We looked decent doing it. And then the 2 games after that, we've been shite again. So it's just... I just genuinely have no confidence that he is the man to take us forward. And even if we were to go and win on Saturday and then beat Arbroath and then beat Alloa in the Cup, it's going to take a lot more than that to convince me. And quite frankly, I don't see us doing those 3 things anyway. One of them.
Well, this is the problem. Is as you say, like you have to work on the evidence of what you can see, and it's just like that Thistle game was a real kind of bellwether because you're like, oh, that is the result that you needed. Is that step 1 of you've turned this around? And the answer, resoundingly, is no, because we've just done the same stuff. And I actually think it's really damning that yesterday was one of the better performances we've had recently, and we get beat by a team that's only won one other game this season. I mean, the quote that you were alluding to there, Greg, what he says is, we came here to try and win the game, and I think if you're at the game today, you would see that we tried to do that. Which, I mean, it's not the most inspiring thing you've ever heard. Like, we tried to win, and we did try, and failed. Like, it's bare minimum stuff, and it's just a case of, like, as I say, I think almost the most damning thing was there was none of like the big red letter from the outset. What are you doing that for? Actually, like, kind of got most things right almost, that given the situation that he's in, and it's still not good enough. So where have you got to go from here? Like, it's as you say, Alan. It's that the question is he going to turn it around? And no, I just don't see it. I don't see what's going to change so fundamentally. And
I actually think there's a bigger issue for me than just the football, though. Some of the stories we're starting to hear now about, you've got a guy on Twitter yesterday or today talking about his kid was the mascot against Morton. And Dougie Emery was absolutely amazing and in and about the bairns and, giving them a bit of chat and a bit of banter and all the rest of it. Barry Robson's nowhere to be seen. And there's other stories about, the way that he's conducting himself around the ground and stuff that you hear. And do you know what? Pinch of salt, because you didn't know.
Yeah.
And these stories didn't always come out when you're winning games of football and stuff. And maybe it's just a stick to beat him with. But it just feels like there's a fundamental issue here with him as an entity in terms of his role within the club and what the club is and what the club wants to be and whether or not he's the right man for the job. And honestly, I kind of feel like he's at a point, I said this a couple of weeks ago, he could win the next 5 games. If he then loses 2, they're going to be calling for his head again.
Right.
It is a matter of time. And we're just kicking the can down the road. And I'd rather we did it now. December's going to be honking. So I'd rather we did it now and actually had a manager coming in with at least an opportunity to bring players in January, not as they're walking in the door, but having been here for a month and assessed the team and decided what's good and what's not good and who needs to be replaced and what options we need, so that there's at least a semblance of a plan come the new year, because we're, as has already been said, we're 3 points off third. And it's only because everybody in this league keeps drawing games.
See, just to come in there, Blair, what I would say as well is I think that you mentioned December and how that's going to be a tough run of games. I think if you, say Robson got the bullet next week and then we have the Arbroath game and we see how that one goes and then you go into December, if you have a new manager in by that point and they win one of those games or 2 of those games or pick up some favourable results, automatically people are going to be like, well, straight away that's the justification done. That's going to be straight in for we made the right decision, we can kick on, we can go on. But yeah, that's probably where I'm sitting as well. I would stake
but
myself.
equally, I think as well that, and again, just thinking hypothetically, I don't think it's anything to do with necessarily that Robson will turn things round or anything like that. But I do think the finances have to come into it, and I think that the board, I would imagine, will be seeing it from the point of view of right now. Okay, for me, the realistic aspect is where are these wins coming from? But you could look at it and go, you're only a couple of wins away from being right back into the mix again. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if the board are seeing it from the point of view of if there's no a direct threat of being sucked into that relegation fight, which there's not right now, and I realise that could change, but there's not right now. Are you better waiting? Is it just a dead rubber season? But actually, you wait until the summer, you empty them then when it's cheaper to empty them, and you've got the summer for a bit of a rebuild of the squad, which I dare say we'll come on to, but that's needed as well, by the way. But I think as well, with recent history, with Ben Murray, we brought in Neil Collins, and this new manager Bounce was like a slinky going down the stairs. That just didn't work. So you've got to weigh in. If you empty them now, who's coming in? Because personally, I wouldn't want an interim manager. I wouldn't want a stopgap. You're wanting somebody in who's available that you're going to have the confidence to come in. And beyond that, if they come in, are you paying money to bring somebody in? What impact does that have on, as you mentioned, Blair, the ability to then change things in January? That there's a moderate, realistic budget at a club like Raith Rovers, and I think sometimes fans maybe forget that there's not just this bank of money that you can just empty staff and it doesn't have an impact on the playing squad, doesn't have an impact on the wider kind of picture. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what the board are thinking, that okay, they're not necessarily going to be thrilled with what's happening on the pitch. They will have very much an eye on gate receipts and perhaps dwindling numbers, etc. It's all part of, it's an investment for them. They're not doing this as any sort of charity. This is an investment for them, but that they are business people, and they're going to have to weigh up. If emptying them means putting their hands in their pockets for a gamble, I don't think that will be their first option.
I think you've touched on a really good point there, Greg, actually, and that is, if we see the attendances start dipping below 3,000 again, it's, a lot of that might be season ticket holders not turning up, and there's all sorts of talk about whether they still get counted in the attendance anyway. But if the stands are visibly emptier, that's people not buying pies. That's people not going into the club shop and spending an absolute fortune buying stickers for their ungrateful little shits of children. There's that happens, and then you've got a couple of weeks' time. You've got a Scottish Cup game coming up against fairly unglamorous opposition, where season tickets are only going to be valid, and you're potentially looking at less than 2,000 turning up to that. Quite realistically, if we've had a couple of shite results, and that's when the board have to start thinking, well, look, these guys are voting with their feet. We can't let it run too long like that, because if they then start finding something else to do on a Saturday, do we get them back again? And I'm not saying that's the ultimate decision, factor in the decision for them, but it has to be a factor, certainly.
I think the thing is, rightfully, football club boards have to have a kind of higher threshold than everybody else because they hired the guy. Ultimately, this is fundamentally your responsibility overall, and you have a responsibility to your manager. You hired him, you brought him in to do a job. You've kind of got a responsibility to let him do that job, basically until it does become untenable. And I think that just sort of has to be the dynamic. And now the very obvious thing is that the Ian Murray situation kind of flies in the face of that. But I suspect fingers may have been burned a little bit, given everything that's happened since. So I don't think it's unreasonable that the actual movement from the board comes after almost the sort of critical mass has already been reached within the support. But I cannot see that we're far away from that. I mean, Robbie, a couple of minutes ago, you mentioned entertainment. I'm quite far away from wanting entertainment. I'd just settle for cohesion. Function would be fine. And that actually is the point where we're way into kind of speculation stuff now, but if it was a caretaker coming in, this to me feels like not an easy gig by any means at all, but the kind of gig that caretaker managers do really well in, where it's probably just a bit of a different voice, back to basics, slightly different environment, get them back enjoying their football again. That's probably all it takes, because actually there's good players there, and they're not being used to their best effect. Okay. And I see that the most troubling thing is that actually yesterday it wasn't a case of lots of square pegs in round holes. It wasn't a case of lots of people being asked to do stuff they can't do. Actually, it was broadly fine, but it still wasn't good enough to beat a side who only won one other game all season. That situation just can't go on for very long, and I don't see where he turns it around from. Right, listen, I tell you, let's park it there, because we've got plenty more to come back to later in the week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you found that more kind of cathartic than just sort of painful to relive. Certainly, anyone who didn't get a ticket in the ballot for that game yesterday, count yourselves lucky. That's a real. We were there, so you didn't have to be. We will be back later in the week to preview the game against Airdrie, which that'll be something one way or another. I'm sure.
It's a team we've got a good record against.
Yeah, exactly, and it's not like they're in the middle of a resurgence of their own. Oh God! Right. Anyway, thank you for listening. Nothing like leaving you on a high note. Goodbye. We'll speak to you again soon.